Morning, everyone. I'm Matt Sanders. I'm the inspector for S&T for the north of Telford. Ben Stevens is your inspector for your particular area, but obviously I know there's lots of members of the community from all over Telford here today. So he sends his apologies, but he can't be here today. So I'm really, really happy to be here. And firstly, to begin with, thank you. It's a massive thank you from us for inviting us in. So that we can talk, we can engage. The last hour I've had such great fun. Being plastered with stickers by all the little ones running around. It's been great. I've really enjoyed it. So thank you so much. And I just wanted to say, obviously, we've got service people in here. So from West Mercia Police as a whole, thank you for your service, everything you do to keep the country safe. Thank you. So I've been asked to start off and give the introduction, which isn't nerve-wracking at all, honestly, but just about what we do as an S&T. So we're stood here at the moment. So you've got myself as an inspector. You've got Alex, who's the sergeant for the area as well. Then you've got Savannah, who's your safe and neighbourhood officer for this particular area, and Nat as well. Okay. And you've got Dave and Dan as well that cover other areas. But it's really important that you understand what we do as a safe and neighbourhoods team. So there's different parts of the police. We have patrol, who will go out and we'll go to the incidents that the community call in. But then the safe and neighbourhoods team, we're the ones that are out on foot in your area, the ones that you want to come talk to. Okay? There is nothing worse in the world for me that if I'm out on foot and we have parents that say to children, don't go near the police, they'll arrest you. No. That's not what we're here for, and that's not what we want to hear. What we want to hear is, go and speak to that policeman, go and speak to that police lady, because we have a lot to learn about engagement from a police point of view as a whole. We're not standing here now saying, as an S&T, we are perfect, we can engage with everyone. Of course we can't. We've got to get better at that. But from our point of view, from an S&T point of view, it's things like this that, I mean, I've been doing this job for 17 years now. It's things like today that make really enthusiastic about what the future holds for West Mercia Police as a whole. So that gives you an idea from what we do as a Safe and Neighbourhoods team point of view. We have a lot of engagements, okay? I'd get in trouble if I didn't say with the Neighbourhood Matters sign that we have up here. So we have something in place called Neighbourhood Matters, which everyone can sign up to, okay? But what we do with that is we send out messages to the community as a whole. So not just negative messages that there might have been a burglary somewhere, but positive messages. We have an engagement event, for example, here today. Please come and join us. So please, by all means, if anyone wants to sign up on that, that'd be really appreciated. It's just your way to speak to us as well. We're also open to suggestions about how we can better engage with the community as a whole. So that gives you an overview of what we do as a Safe and Neighbourhoods team. I haven't got a slideshow. I'm not going to go through it in minute detail because I just wanted this to be nice and relaxed and you can ask me any questions that you want, okay? So in a minute I'll pass you to Alex, who's the sergeant for the particular area, and she knows details around the area as well. But has anyone got any questions for me around the Safe and Neighbourhoods team and what we do? Put your hand up. You have to come up a bit. Go on. It's all right.
What do you do if the bad guy runs away?
If the bad guy runs away? Well, about 12 years ago, when I was young, I'd chase after him. Now we have very young officers there, where they will run after him, okay? So they will run after him, and the likes of Dave and I will stand at the back while they run after him, okay? Because we're old, we can't do any running anymore. Of course, mate, go on. Have a think, mate, honestly.
We can stop people from stealing stuff.
We can stop people from stealing stuff. And you know who can stop people from stealing stuff? The community as a
Yeah,
whole.
bad guys.
The bad guys, exactly. But that's where the S&T come in. Without the community, the police are nothing. That's what it comes down to. Without the community, we are nothing. We rely on the community so heavily to help us with investigations, to engage with us. So from my point of view, that's a really good question, mate. And we will stop people from stealing, I promise.
Come in. One other thing that I just want to say is that you are not trigger happy like your counterparts in America anyway, so we thank you for that. At least we are safe here. We don't see guns and stuff, And yeah, my question is, when you drive down Brookside, you see signboard pointing to that place as being criminal, so beware. Yeah, isn't it some sort of, stigma, How did you come to that conclusion that that area is a criminal area?
Yeah. So what the signs you'll see there are what's called smart water. So we'll have particular areas where we use preventative techniques, primary preventative techniques. So we'll put smart water. So if you have a particular area that's been absolutely hammered for burglaries, so that's when someone goes into a house, someone goes into a business and takes stuff. We'll have certain areas around there that we will cover with smart water, so when they come into custody, they'll be all over the hands. So that's why that sign's up there saying, criminals beware. It's trying to deter people from trying to break into houses, and it's not just in Brookside. You'll have places like Newport that will have it, little villages in the middle of nowhere will have it. It's just our way of trying to prevent things before they happen. Okay. Yes, of course.
Just want to find out your advice as to how best we can handle antisocial behaviors being leveled against us as a church. Because there are a lot of examples where, for example, we might be here, there'll be snowing outside, and someone will just open the door and throw snow at us. In that particular instance, what is the best advice you will give us as to how we handle so? Because there will be, and also there are several times that I will be driving past and I'll see some young guys on our roof. And in that instance, you are a bit careful as to what to say, what to do. So I'm just asking your advice as to us. When any level of antisocial behavior is being leveled against us, how do we approach it?
So it's really important with any antisocial behaviour that it's reported to begin with, so we can build up a picture. Doesn't matter how small. So that's why you have Nat here. That's why you have Savannah here. Okay, these are your SNOs. These are your direct points of contact into the police. Okay, so even if you might look at it and think, okay, that's only a small thing, all right, that creates a bigger picture for us. So we have powers, things like community protection warnings or community protection notices. Well, if we've got people doing that, we can go and issue a notice where we say, that isn't right. If that carries on, we're going to take formal action against you. Okay? There's also things we can do around preventative work to try and help you around that. So I would encourage you to speak to Nat, to speak to Savannah, and if you have any issues at all, you report it directly into us so we can build up that picture.
We have had an incident here at the church that was reported to us that was actually spotted by one of our officers that was visiting. And what we did straight away was put the church under what's called a risk management plan, where officers are dedicated to come and visit the church regularly and make sure that they have visits, they speak to the people working here and just see what we can do to prevent these things happening. And particularly with the church, we had part of our team come out and do some safety checks to see if we needed better lighting and if we needed more CCTV, because I know there's been incidents with children, especially on the roofs and things like that. But as my inspector says, please report it, even if it's the smallest of small things, report it, because the more we build this picture up, we can say, actually, there is a real problem going on here, and we've got more powers to be able to do something about it. Because I think with that one isolated incident, there was only that one incident, when actually, speaking to you, there have been quite a few little things. So I think if we build all that up together, myself and Savannah can then take action on that. But as I say, you are being monitored under this risk management plan at the moment, and fingers crossed things seem to have died down. But that was a really good question, so thank you. Pass you back.
No, thank you for that, it's appreciated. And I'm going to say I know Savannah and Nat well enough. They are really proactive. They are really proactive, and they will get out and about, and they will take some action if we need to take some action. So please report it.
Is that okay?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Why did you guys want it to be police people?
Oh, that's a question, isn't it? Okay. So, I'll tell you what, Nat, we'll start with you, and then we'll work the way down, yeah?
Well, I think for me, I like talking, as you can probably guess, as I grab the mic off the boss. But I think I like engaging with the community. I like being able to speak to people. I like being able to help people. And this job that's what it's all about. It's all about helping people. And it's not all about catching the bad guys. Sometimes it's about sitting with little old Mrs. Miggins and having a cup of tea because actually she's had a really bad week and she's quite lonely and she just wants to offload a few of her problems. So, there's a hell of a lot to community policing. It's a really big thing. But for me, that's why I wanted to join, to help people and to be able to have something different every day, because our job is literally different every day. And I absolutely love it. So it's a great, if anyone's thinking about joining, please do, because it's a wonderful job. Okay.
So yeah, I'd agree with that. It's about being able to help people, mate, more than anything else. I can go home every day and I'm really proud, and my family can be proud that I've done something. It also helped me that my granddad was in the police, my uncle was in the police, my auntie was in the police. Kind of had no choice. So for me, it's about helping people primarily.
Hello, I just wanted to introduce myself. I am the sergeant for this area. I cover Telford South. You do have Savannah and Natalie, as already been introduced, but I am quite new to the role, so I'm still getting to learn what to do and what communities we serve in. So I really appreciate you taking the time to invite me to come today, because I'm really proud to be here and pleased that you've invited me. But the reason why I joined the police, like the other two have already said, it is to help people. I want to better the communities. I want to make a difference. There are people whose lives I have made a difference with, and that to me is invaluable. It's really important to me. And also, stood here being a female, because we are underrepresented in the police. I think that's a big thing. I wanted to diversify the police a little bit more. So trying to encourage a lot of women to join, and people from ethnic communities, that's a big thing, which I know will be touched upon today. But that's another reason why I wanted to just try and bring a different perspective into policing, because I think when you've got different communities, different cultures that come together in the police, it helps to support communities, because we can't police if we don't understand what other cultures are and what other perspectives are. So I think that's a big thing and important for me as well. Savannah?
Hello, I'm Savannah. I'm one of the local Safe Neighbourhood officers. I've been on response for 2.5 years, so I'm fairly new to this role, having only been here a month. I think for me, the most important thing, like my colleagues have already said, is making that positive difference and helping people. I don't think any of us would be stood here today if we weren't here to help people. Being out and about every day, meeting new people and building up that relationship and that positive rapport with the public after perhaps some people haven't had great experience is something that I'm really passionate about. And just making a difference to everyone's lives. If I can go home having helped one person, then I've done a good job that day.
It's not hard to follow, Dave. It's not hard to follow at all.
Right, so I'm Dave Worrell. I'm actually the Safe Neighbourhood Officer for Lawley and Overdale. I've been in the police for 18 years now. I actually joined as a special constable back in 1989 when Telford was very, very different. Why do I do it? As everybody said, to help people. I've got the best job in the world. I get paid to go out and meet people. I get paid to go out and talk to people in the community. There's not many people that can say that they've got that opportunity to actually go out and interact with you and make a difference in your lives. And that is what really, and that is what really makes the difference to me. Going out, meeting the community and making a change that makes your life better really does tick the box for me. Beat that, Dan.
Thank you. Hello everyone, finally I'm Dan, I'm the local neighbourhood officer for Telford Town Centre, so whenever you're out shopping in town you'll probably see me around. Reason I joined the police, so before I joined the police, I've been in now for 4.5 years. I worked in accounting and I thought I couldn't sit behind a desk every day and I didn't feel like I was making much of a difference. So I thought I'm going to go for a career change. joined the police. So yeah, a bit like everyone else has said, just to help everyone, to meet people, and sort of proactively target crime is a big thing for me, and make, without a bit of a cliche, to make the country a safer place for everyone to get along with. I think that's about it.
Okay. Yeah, okay, no problem.
I wrote my question down so I won't forget it. So West Mercia launched the Race Action Plan in 2022, which was aimed to create a police service which is anti-racist and trusted by Black people. I wanted to know what things are being implemented in the local community to enforce this action plan, and then additional to that, do you think that there is more that you could do to gain trust within the Black community?
Okay, so we are going to cover the Police Race Action Plan a little bit later, but I am, from a Telford point of view, I was given that as part of my portfolio to try and progress. I'll answer the last part of your question first. Of course, there are things we can always do better. We should always strive to be able to engage with every community that we possibly can. If we think we are perfect, we will not progress the way we want to progress as a police service. So yes, of course, we can do plenty. I'll just give you a couple of examples that we're doing today. Things like today, where we've been invited into the church to talk to people, to engage with people. That is the start. This is a start of the journey. Pete, who's stood in the corner, has helped to organise this. We've had pack meetings, okay? So we've had communities come together from Black and Black heritage communities to come and have honest conversations with us. That's the big thing for me. We need to have honest conversations and not be scared. If we're doing something wrong, if we haven't got something right, we need to be open enough to say, okay, we can change that, and this is what we'll do. But we have to listen to our community in order to do that. We're not perfect as a police service. I'm not sitting here saying we are. No police service in the country is. We can all learn and get better around engagement. But I know we'll go into it in a bit more detail later, but hopefully that answers some of your question. Thank you.
What do you do?
What do I do? Well, me personally, I sit behind the desk a lot, mate, and I get other people to do stuff. But if we're talking in general, the main thing we do, mate, is keep people safe. More than anything else. Go on.
I want you all to read my book.
We will all read your book. I think Pete's already read that. It's better handwriting than Pete.
You can take just as one.
Yeah, of course.
Hello. I have two questions. And one is, I've lived in a country. That country, I think, was the first in Europe to legalize drugs in Amsterdam. Mm-hmm. And everybody is entitled to have some quantity if I want it with him, with me. And sometimes when the people are sniffing, having their drugs, these police people, they are said they are helping people, they will stand at ease, look at them, sniffing, smoking, fighting. When they start fighting, they will help them. But they won't say that, stop doing this. My first question on that is that, as a policeman, you want a better off for that person. Mm-hmm. What counsel do you give to people like that? I've seen people also here, sometimes you're a policeman, you know better than me. Mm-hmm. You see people smoking, doing such things. But when you see them, you just say they are bad people, you arrest them, I don't know. Or you counsel them, you help them. Number two, the Brookside, that everywhere is written, beware of criminals. Two things, two questions. Sometimes, you may have a visitor coming from outside the country, and then you are taking the person to the community of Brookside, and we see beware of criminals, the first thing that will register in my mind, my friend is living in a criminal area. And number two, I know a family living there, they don't belong to this church. It has affected one of their children mental health, because the child is saying, we have to move from here because there are criminals here. And the parents doesn't want to move, and they are still living there. To me, is there not any way that you can elect people to know that this area, there are criminals there, so that you can remove that criminal symbol all everywhere? Amen.
Thank you.
I really support what she said. The stigma attached to that area. I live in Brewster, so I do appreciate the concern where she's coming from.
It's the understanding of the wedding. The signboard there is not for the community. But it's saying beware criminals. It's telling the criminals that we are watching you.
Yeah.
But it's not telling the community that there are criminals here.
No.
So it's the understanding. Yes.
Yes.
It's the wording, understanding of the word. So I don't think the signboard is there telling people that Brookside is a criminal area. But it's telling the criminals around that, be careful, we are watching you. So if you are a criminal and you get there, you know that there's an eye on you. Yes. Yeah. So we have to understand it.
That's exactly. Yes. That's exactly right. So.
The same thing was written. I've been to America, I've been to Bronx, I've been to Harlem. You know better than me, a lot of criminals are living there. They were having this symbol. And because of this, what I am saying, affecting people's mental health, they remove it. They remove that symbol and have a way of telling people, beware, there are criminals here. Amen.
Okay. I think there'll be more time for questions as well. We've got a few things that we have to run through.
Okay, I'll very quickly just cover off a couple of things from that. So, with the smart water, okay, that is, and you're exactly right, that is to tell the criminals that actually we've got smart water in this area, and that's the most important thing. Now, I know what you're saying, obviously it can affect people, but that's down to us as an SNT team to be in the community and educating. We're not saying there's criminals there, there's criminals here. We are trying to prevent offences occurring, okay? Everyone will react to that differently, but if within the community, if anyone is worried about that, make contact with any of us here, please, and we'll explain it in more detail. Now, when it comes to the drugs, and we were talking about the drugs earlier and the arresting and what we're doing for the people, we do an awful lot of diversionary work. So if someone's got a tiny bit of cannabis on them, for example, depending on what's happened with them previously, it doesn't mean we'll necessarily arrest then and there. Okay, we will look at the wider picture. So you may have someone that might be struggling with things, and they might need our partner agencies around mental health and other things. So we can put things in place, and we have a lot of other agencies that we work very closely with within the third sector, which is the charity sector, or our council colleagues, where we can put education in place, or we can put them on courses that explain, actually, this is damage cannabis does long term. So we don't criminalise straight away. We always consider other options, because you're exactly right. It's all well and good arresting people 10 times for the same offence, but actually what are we doing to tackle the core problem and the root cause? So it's what we call professional curiosity. We will always look at that. We will always look at that. Okay. Okay. Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to hand you over to the boss now, Pete. I think you're next. And he's going to have a conversation. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for inviting me here. So my name is Pete Kitosi-Sanga. I'm a temporary superintendent. I've currently been seconded to the Police Waste Action Plan team nationally. So I'm going to be leading on one of the work streams, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about the Police Waste Action Plan shortly. So a bit of background about me. I am a Black Heritage officer. So I was born in this country. I lived in Uganda in East Africa from the age of 2 until I was 19. I did all my schooling and growing up years there. And then I came back to the UK in the early 90s, and I joined policing back in 2002. So I've been a police officer for 22 years. And yeah, I still enjoy my job. It's very rewarding. And I'm really pleased that I'm able to come and talk to you a little bit more about policing in general, but also specifically about the Police Race Action Plan. Let's see if I can work this technology now. Okay, so Police Race Action Plan, what is that all about? So if you remember back in 2020, back in Minneapolis in America, back on the 25th of May when George Floyd was killed, I think the world woke up and realized that policing needs to do something to improve it for our black heritage communities all worldwide. And after the death of George Floyd, we had the Black Lives Matter movement, so lots of it globally around the world, and also within policing here in the UK, the National Police Chiefs Council, College of Policing, and all chief constables around the country realised that we need to do something to improve policing for our black communities. So the Police Race Action Plan was born. And the reason it was born as well is because in the UK and across the world, we haven't got it right. So we need to get it right for our black communities. So the Police Race Action Plan comes in, it's got 4 different work streams within it, and I'll talk to you about those as we go along. But before I do that, just wanted to talk to you again about the case for change. So other than the death of George Floyd, there was also lots of other high-profile cases within the media where we've damaged trust and confidence, specifically within our black communities. And when I talk about black communities, I'm talking about those communities of black British, black African, black Caribbean, and the mixed heritages as well. So this specific plan is there to improve policing for those specific communities. And within West Mercia Police, it doesn't specifically mean that we're going to be ignoring other ethnic diverse communities. In fact, we've got other plans in place to improve policing for all of our communities. But you can see some of the high-profile cases there. More close to home in Telford, we had the death of Ian Gordon back in 1991. We had the deaths of Errol and Jason McGowan back in the 2000s. We had the death of Dalian Atkinson. All those high-profile cases, we didn't do particularly well in policing to deal with those cases, and so it has continued to damage public trust and confidence. But we are on a journey within policing. We want to improve policing for all of our communities, and so we do a lot of work. So Pete Rigby up here in Telford is doing fantastic work within the communities to try and bridge those gaps. So we are very, very grateful for you having us here today to come and talk to you about it. Okay, so work stream 1 of the Police Race Action Plan is called Represented, and it talks about internal culture and inclusivity. So this is the work stream that I'm going to be leading on nationally, and this talks about having a more representative workforce. So what does that mean? I'll talk to you about some statistics shortly, but what we're trying to do in police forces across the country, and there's 43 police forces working really hard to try and improve representation. So we have very few black heritage and other ethnic diverse communities within policing. And so we want to encourage anybody today that wants to join the police, please come and join us. I am one of very few black heritage officers within West Mercia Police. In fact, all of our ethnic diverse officers amount to about 3.2% of all of our workforce. So that's 83 officers out of 2,500. So we're very few, and I need people like you to come and help me to build policing and to help our colleagues to understand how to police your communities. So workstream 1 also talks about our internal culture. So what are we doing internally to try and improve the way we interact with our communities? I used to be the Equality, Diversity and inclusion lead at West Mercia Police. So I go around and I do a lot of talks to sergeants and inspectors to try and improve their knowledge and understanding about difference and other cultures. And it's really difficult because a lot of our majority white officers don't always understand the intricacies of engaging with other communities. It's difficult, but we're on a journey and we're getting there. In fact, the majority of our officers across the force actually, would assert that they are not racist. They are not. We have very few that still are, but we're doing our best to root those officers out. So the Police Race Action Plan here is about improving policing for black people, but to get us to an anti-racist organisation. And what anti-racist means is different from being just not racist. Because when you're not racist, you are passive, you might ignore a comment, you might not do anything about it. We want our police officers to be anti-racist. And that means they've got to be proactive in how they deal with it when they hear it, and how they actually escalate it when they actually need to. So that's where we want to be. So Workstream 1 is trying to educate our workforce around difference, but also to ensure that we're working towards a police service that's more representative of the communities. And the way the Police Race Action Plan is governed in West Mercia Police, it sits front and centre of our Chief's Inclusion Board. It's a meeting where our chief holds the rest of the chief officer team to account for delivery against all of these 4 work streams. So it's really important to the chief that we actually drive this plan and make sure that we achieve that anti-racist police service. This particular work stream is led by our assistant chief officer. So again, all of the work streams have a chief officer lead to them. Okay, that's our population across West Mercia. You can see it broken down into the different local policing areas. On the right-hand side, you'll see total BME. So BME is Black Minority Ethnic, but we're trying to move away from the term minority ethnic because it's quite demeaning. We prefer to use the word ethnically diverse. But we have 5.8% of the population across the whole of West Mercia identify as non-white. So that's, if you turn it on its head, 94% of our population is predominantly white. That's not a problem. It's the way we are. We just live in a very undiverse area. But that brings challenges specifically for our officers. And most of our junior officers as well, when they come in, a lot of them don't have regular interaction with anybody that looks different to them. So it becomes really difficult then when they try and engage with other communities. In Telford, you can see up there that your population is 11.8%. So Telford has the largest number of non-white population across the country. So you've got a big, big population compared to other areas. But when you look at our own ethnic diversity within West Mercia Police, you can see the numbers are really, really low. So we want to try and get to 5.8% to be more representative of our communities. So in Telford, for example, you have 11.8% population, but only 3.2% of our officers identify as non-white. And there's got to be a question around that. Why is it that we've only got so few officers in Telford? Is it because people don't want to come and become a police officer in the area they live? Do we need to recruit from outside the area? So my plea is, if anybody here is thinking of joining the police, please come and help us, because it's really difficult when there's so few of us in the organisation to try and effect change. And we're doing some really good work in West Mercia at the moment. I was hoping this wouldn't be a sales pitch. Okay, so I just want to talk very briefly about our Black Workforce Survey. So as part of the Police Uplift Programme, so this was the time when Boris Johnson announced we're going to get 20,000 extra new cops. As part of the Uplift Programme, we worked really hard to try and make sure that we recruited that number of officers. So this particular survey was started as part of that, but also it was to capture the feelings and experiences of our Black heritage officers across policing. It's going to be a 5-year survey where they're going to capture a load of data. And some of the insights from that survey are really interesting about how our own officers within policing are actually feeling. So that shows we haven't got it right. I chair our local network for ethnically diverse officers, and we have a lot of referrals from officers who are feeling very isolated. They feel that their teams are not very embracing of their different cultures. So it is difficult, but we are on a journey, and we're actually getting there, and we are improving. So this particular survey is there because there's a lot of insights in there which help us to inform how we then, police our internal communities. Okay, workstream 2, again, I'm going to talk very briefly about this. This is called Not Over-Policed, use of our coercive powers. And what that means is that we don't want policing to over-police our black heritage communities. So we have a lot of powers that we use, things like stop and search, so where we actually go out and we can stop people within the communities. So stop and search is probably one of those most controversial powers out there because it causes a lot of distrust within the communities. So stop and search is a really big part of workstream 2, as well as the use of taser, as well as the use of stopping with, if you're in a vehicle, we've started recording stops to understand whether we have actually got any disproportionality. And what I mean by that is, are we overusing that power towards our black communities? And if we are, then what are we doing to reform it? Because again, with the Police Race Action Plan, if something is disproportionate, it doesn't necessarily mean it's prejudicial or racial. It just means that if we can't explain it, then the inference is that, it is. So we need to do something to improve it. So again, this is led by a chief officer, our assistant chief constable for local policing. So it has very high level oversight. Workstream 3 is around involved. So that's how do we get our communities involved in policing. So how can you come and help us to improve policing? So events like this are really ideal. We can have open, honest conversations with you, but we also have something called independent advisory groups. So they are people that are members of the community that can come and help us inform how we can, improve our policies and practices and procedures. So again, if anybody doesn't necessarily want to join policing, you can join an independent advisory group. We have one called the BME IAG, or Independent Advisory Group. So come and join, because you can influence how we can change things, both for internally within our internal community, but also external communities like yourselves as well. And the last one there is not underprotected against victimization. So this one is workstream 4. This is also led by a chief officer. And this is about getting to a police service that protects black people from crime and seeks justice for them. So what we're trying to do is look across all of our crime types and to find out whether those crime types are disproportionate towards our black communities. And if they are, then we need to do something to address it. So the Police Race Action Plan is a big piece of work. It complements our general diversity, equality and inclusion plans and agenda, and it's there to specifically improve policing for you as a community, but also nationally as well. That's West Mercia Police's commitment to the plan and all forces around the country. So we've taken a zero tolerance of racism in policing. We have adopted this explain or reform approach. So if we have disproportionality in any of our police powers, if we can't explain it, then we need to do something to improve it. We need to improve our understanding of black history. So we produced recently a black history learning product, which was a digital product. Our chief made it mandatory. And I think at the moment we're on something like 70 out of 79% completion rate. So most of our officers have completed it. It's a really good product that explains history in its general terms, but also the history we've had locally here in Telford. We also looking at developing a more representative workforce, so we want to increase from 3.2% representation up to at least 5.8%. And also to increase the involvement of black communities in policing. So enough from me about the Police Race Action Plan, and I'm happy to take some questions.
I think we maybe some slight
we've got refreshments. So what we were thinking of doing is, whilst we are refreshing, we can still go on, have one-to-one engagement for the question and answers. Because we've got a few things that we have to run through. Is that okay? I think let's do that one as well. Sorry about that. Let's do that one. That's fine. Yeah. Kat, you want to take that one then? Yeah. So we've got the recruitment, so police recruitment. So she will share. What's it like to be a police officer? I think we've discussed that one, so we've taken that one off as well.
Okay, good afternoon. It's now the afternoon. I am Catherine Scrimshaw. I am a sergeant in West Mercia Police, and I run our Positive Action team. Positive Action is a series of initiatives that help us try and recruit and change the demographic of West Mercia Police. I'm going to keep it short because I know you've got refreshments on. I have come with loads of recruitment material at the back. A few people have come over, they've taken some details, they've given me their details so I can follow you up with some emails about some different things that are happening. If you are interested in joining the police and you've got some serious questions or you've got some worries, please come forward and speak to me. Please come and give me your email address. I run a series of online sessions. You can speak to serving police officers. You can find out what we do. You can ask any questions that are bothering you. You can find out what our shift patterns are like. You can find out what different jobs we have going in the police. You can literally ask us anything and you don't have to sign on the dotted line. Unless, of course, you take a snap band, then you're in. That's it. All the kids are in, definitely. But I know that you want to get to your refreshments, so I'll leave it there. But if anybody wants to join the police, where's the guy that was in the military? I'm definitely signing you up. You're definitely in. Yeah, the pastor's in, you're in. You can snap. Has he got a snap band? Not yet. We'll get you a snap band. Someone get me a snap band from the back. But no, seriously, it's a wonderful career. I was a solicitor before I joined. I joined for 5 years, and 14 years later, I'm still here. I'm still doing it. I still like to have a laugh with the community. I still like to help people, and I still like to serve. So any questions, you can literally ask me anything. I've probably seen it. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you very much. There is a table at the back there, so if you think you've got more questions you want to ask, please feel free and then speak to them as well. You want to ask? So on? Yeah, go. Kat, you want to take the questions? Please. Okay. We'll take some few questions.
He's got a question.
Okay.
I just had a question for the BAME officer, ethnic diverse officer. Pete. Oh, perfect. Do you have a reason as to why the stop and search has been going on for as long as it has? Because I know in the community it's kind of been a long conversation about how black people get stopped and searched more often than other communities. So is there a reason it's taken so long for us to get to this point where it kind of feels like there's not much that's being done about it? And I think that's one of the main concerns people have about distrust with the police in the community.
Yeah, so stop and search, we've come on a very, very long journey. So when we look at our search figures within West Mercia Police, we're not great at all. So if you are a black person living in West Mercia today, you are actually 6.6 times more likely to be stopped and searched. Okay, now that's quite stark, isn't it? However, we've come a very long way since then, because we have set up a lot of scrutiny panels around stop and search. We have improved rewritten our stop and search strategy. We have a chief inspector on every single local policing area who scrutinises all of the stop searches on black heritage people. Every single stop search has got to be recorded on body-worn video, and that body-worn video has got to be scrutinised. And then, as I mentioned earlier on, we have the independent scrutiny panels who also come in, and they scrutinise our the different stop searches. So we've also just developed a training package as well, which started to be rolled out in June. So that's going to all frontline officers to improve how they approach stop and search. So 18 months ago, you were 12 times more likely to be stopped and searched, but that figure's now come down to 6.6. So when I said earlier on, we're on a journey, and we are getting there. So we want that disproportionality to be down to zero. So we are getting there, but it's a slow process. Yeah, again, stop and search is a really good tool that police use. So the reason we use stop and search is to deal with instances of serious violence and also to remove knives and weapons from the streets. So we have to have stop and search. But the key thing about stop and search, it has to be used appropriately. And if it's not used appropriately, then we have all issues with communities losing trust and confidence within policing. So. Again, it's around education of our officers. They have to have the right grounds to be able to stop and search somebody. So you can't just stop and search somebody because, they look suspicious. We've gone away from those days. You have to have proper grounds to stop them, which is also backed up by intelligence, if you like. They have to make sure that, if a description is given, that description is absolutely spot on. And I always say during my, diversity training, anything less than 100% stop search won't do, because at the end of the day, we need to make sure that when we're stop searching people, we have that 100% grounds. Otherwise, we don't do it. Yeah. Okay.
Praise the Lord.
My colleague's going to give a presentation a bit later on stop and search anyway, so you've given an opportunity to ask some more questions.
So there will be more questions on stop and search whilst he's doing that. I understand some of you want to ask 1 or 2 questions on recruitment. Are you okay to do that, please? There are a few questions on recruitment.
My question is, can I go on, please?
Yes.
Okay. My first question is, at which age can you or can't you apply for the police recruitment? And the second question is, sometimes when we walk around the community, there are some spots which even a year child can identify it as a drugs selling place. What is the police doing about it? Because it's not helping our children to grow around that area. It gets influence on them. Thank you.
So to answer your first question, you can start your application to join us when you are 17. Now, like all things, nationally, for all jobs, everything is done online. The application form will come into the recruitment team and it will be closed because it says that you're 17 years old because you have to be 18. However, it takes about a year to join the police at the moment. So lots of people want to get their applications in when they're 17 and started so that when they're 18, they can start work and they haven't got that gap on their CV. So it will be closed because you're 17, but you can then reach out to the recruitment team and say, yes, I'm 17, but I want to start the process. Here's my predicted grades, and you can start the process. So 17, if you don't want that gap on your CV because of the time that it takes to do the vetting and all the different things. The hotspots. Hotspots are very difficult. We identify a hotspot, we target it, we close it down, the hotspot moves. We identify it again, and it moves again. They're very difficult. And I know that you're saying, yes, they can be identified by everybody in the community. Even a 1-year-old can see that perhaps that's a drugs den over there. We work very hard with our communities to make sure that, 1, these are communicated to the police, because if we don't know they're there, we can't tackle them. 2, we'll then try and put in all those preventative measures to make sure that people aren't in those situations in the first place. So they're not getting to the drugs. They don't want to have the drugs. They don't want to sell the drugs. There's work out there. There's programs out there that people can join with the police. And 3, the biggest one, is that massive piece of community work. This is where we need the buy-in from the community. This is where we need your help to help us shut down these hotspots. Keep reporting them. If you see it and you're not happy with how it's being dealt with, please ring us again. Please ask somebody else to ring us who's seeing it so we know how serious the problem is. We can't be everywhere. There's 2,500 police officers in Shropshire, Worcestershire and Herefordshire. We simply can't be everywhere. So we need you to keep making those calls. I know that doesn't entirely answer your question, but just keep bringing us back. If you've got a specific area that you're thinking of, which I assume perhaps you do, which is why you've raised this question, please come and speak to your local SNT. I don't work around here. Your local SNT team, who were all at the front earlier, they do, and they might have a piece of information of something that's happening that I don't know is. But please keep bringing it to our attention. That is the biggest ask that I can give you. Okay? Is there anything else you wanted to ask?
Oh. Hi. Can I?
Oh, the oldest age to join the police. So the oldest age to join the police is an interesting one. We don't actually have one fixed in stone on a piece of paper. So if you were 55, 60, the training can be 3 years long. So what will happen is your application goes to a community panel and they examine your application and they think, well, perhaps this person's had a desk job their whole life. Are they going to be able to work shifts? Are they going to be 63, 64 by the time they finish training? It's quite a big investment of public money to train somebody who's perhaps not going to go on to have a bit of a career with the police. So they might say no. Or they might say, do you know what, this person's ex-military, they've worked shifts all their life, they're fit and healthy, they're probably going to go on for another 10 years. It goes to a panel. So there's not really an upper limit. We need skills at all levels from across the community. They're all really valuable to us. Languages, all experiences in life. So I definitely would encourage somebody who's slightly older to apply as well as somebody who's younger. So never think, oh, I can't apply because I'm too old. It's always worth doing it.
Hi, Kat. You kind of answered part of the question. I just wanted to ask, if someone was coming from a healthcare background, how easy is it to pivot into policing or any other faculty of that nature?
Well, you've got the biggest skill that we're looking for already coming from a healthcare background. You can talk to people. And our job as police officers is talking to people. That's what we are. Our business is people. And if you're working in a healthcare background, I assume that you're used to talking to people who are coming to you, they're upset, they're not having the best day of their lives, they need help from somebody. And guess what? That's what we do as police officers. That's when people tend to ring us. They're having a bad day, something's gone wrong, and they want somebody to help them solve that problem. And that's what you're doing in healthcare. So you're bringing those skills straight to us. Now, the only baseline skills that we have to join the police are a level 2 in English and maths, unless you want to do the degree course with us, and you must come across with a level 2 in English and maths and a level 3 qualification. So if you're in the NHS or the healthcare profession, you may already have those qualifications, but yes, it's very, very transferable. Okay. Anyone else? Anyone else want a magic snap band to join? Yeah?
Is that okay? Yeah. Okay, so I know how you explained before that if you see something, you should report it. But there's always sometimes that fear that if you report it, you could get targeted by whoever might be organising those things. So what would you say to reassure us about reporting things?
That's a very good question. I hope everybody over there heard that. So if you've seen something and you're afraid to report it, what do? You can always report it online. You don't have to physically go into a police station. You don't have to be seen anywhere near a police station to report nowadays. You can go home, make sure you're in a safe environment, somewhere that you feel safe, to ring the police, okay? You can email us, you can phone us, you can text us. There's loads of ways that you can contact the police without it being traceable to you. If you don't want your name involved, we can remove your name from things as well, okay? So you don't have to be scared to come forward. The important thing is that you do come forward, because if you're in one of those situations, I would suggest that you're going to need the help of the police, which is why you're feeling, that's why you're feeling scared. You know, something's scaring you, something's worrying you, and that is where you need the help of the police. And it's a very brave situation to go on and make that phone call, but I would always encourage you to do it, because we've got lots of resources, we've got lots of services that we can bring to help solve these problems. But if you're too scared and we never get that phone call in the first place, we're never going to know that something's happening or that you need help. And that is a much worse situation to be in. Okay? All right?
My question is that, what is the lowest or the standard qualification that if anyone have interest in joining the police, he or she should have? Because there are some people, they are very enthused about it, but probably maybe they feel that their qualification is not there for them to join. Yeah.
Because he did say lowest. What if you are also very educated? Are you able to join the police force and then just go into, you did use the term senior officer, or you do have to go through and then move your ranks up?
So in policing, we do have a direct entry inspector scheme. So you can join as an inspector, so you wouldn't be a PC and you wouldn't be a sergeant, you would join as an inspector, so you're already 2 ranks up into the job, and you'd be earning about £60,000, £65,000, something like that. So we do have schemes. So yeah, it's in, right, get me that snap band actually, please, come on, pass it forward. So we do have schemes available. They are very sought after, but never say never and always give something a go. I'm optimistic in life and that's what I think you should do. So yes, we do have schemes where you can miss out those first 2 ranks. To join as a police officer, we've got several different routes at the moment. We've got the old school route that used to exist where you can join the police, you can do a police course and you can become a police officer. Now everybody out there thinks you have to have a degree to be a police officer because we've called one of our programs the degree apprenticeship. Okay, so it's a little bit confusing. You can join the police without a degree, but get a degree. So day one, you get your police uniform, all exciting, best day ever, and day one, you start your degree. So you do the 2 things together. Sounds a little bit overwhelming, but we've had literally hundreds of thousands of people across the UK who've successfully managed to get a degree from the police, pay for your degree, you don't pay us back, you get paid your wage. Now, to me, that sounds a bit daunting. Oh my God, I've got to do a degree, and I've got to do my job, and I've got to have a life, am I going to do all this? Well, your degree is about your job, okay? So bits of things that you do throughout your day will be relevant to what you're then going to go home and sit down and write up at night. So it's completely doable. The police do support you as much as you can to make sure that you complete your degree and you get enough time to do it. It's a challenge, but doing a degree is a challenge. So you can get a degree, or you can join us if you have a degree. So they're the 3 different routes. 1, you join us, be a police officer, don't want a degree. 2, you join us, you get a degree, happy days, fantastic. Or 3, you join us with a degree, and then you get another degree. So for that 3rd route, you must have a degree in place already to join us. Okay, does that answer your questions?
I still think we should make time to have that discussion with her. We've got violence against women, we've got hate crime, we've got Stockholm search, we've got questions and answers as well. We've got 5 more things to go. Is it possible for us to just keep it and move to the next one? There will be more time for questions and answers, please. You can write them down and then we can move faster. Is that all right? Please, thank you very much. I think we'll go for the violence against women.
We will keep this very, very brief. We're going to do a bit of participation. So rather than us talking at you, we're going to get you to engage a little bit more because I think you've been spoken at quite a bit. Sorry. Do you both need a mic? Yes, please. Yeah. So does anybody understand what we mean when we say VAUG or violence against women and girls? Does anybody have any idea at all what that might entail?
Yes, lady at the back.
That's one of them, yeah. So it does include lots of crimes, so that's sexual offences. It can include stalking, harassment, domestic abuse, but it can also include non-crime as well. So that's when you go out and people may make you feel uncomfortable as a female or as a young girl. So one of the activities that we're going to do is we're going to separate men and women. We've got quite an even number, so that'll be quite good. So I'll let Nat lead that, just so we can give you an overview of what violence against women and girls is, and then we'll get you to stand up and sit down.
Okay, so can I ask all the men in the room to stand up for me, please? Thank you. And it's not so that I can just have a good look at who's the best looking. Okay? So at least once a year, can you sit down if you have not ever had a time in your life when you have, in a year, when you have felt vulnerable or you felt frightened in a situation?
So that can include if you're walking alone at night, you might take a different route home. It's been common where some people have put keys between their fingers because they feared their situation and they're worried about what might happen, or they avoid a situation completely.
So if that has happened to you in a year, please sit.
Just once a year.
Just once a year. Okay. What about a month? If that's happened to you within a month, can you please sit down?
So that's something that you feel monthly. So the first one was once a year. The second one is if you feel that way at least once a month.
And finally, weekly.
So if you feel fearful, once a week. Okay. So there's still quite a few men standing, so that's positive. So at least we know that you don't fear for your safety on a regular basis.
Okay.
Right, if we can ask you all
Thank
to sit
you.
down.
Can we do the same with the ladies in the room now, please? Can you all stand up?
So again, just explain it. So feeling unsafe is anything where you may take a different route. So you may change a course, you might not walk down that alleyway, you might decide that you don't want to walk home at night on your own or walk anywhere or get in a taxi on your own. So anything that makes you feel unsafe. So again, we'll ask the same question.
So within a year, if you haven't felt unsafe, then sit down.
If you haven't.
Within a month, if you haven't felt unsafe within a month. And finally, a week. Has a week gone by when you've not felt safe? Okay, thank you, ladies. You can all sit down now. The purpose of that, as you can see, is it's not to say, you know, men are stronger and tougher and women aren't. But it is quite clear cut there that women obviously do have a lot more episodes when they feel vulnerable. Myself and my sergeant were discussing this earlier on this morning and saying that as women, you know, we're police officers, we're trained to be able to protect ourselves. But even, you know, when we're at home, walking the dog in perhaps an area where there's not many people and it's poorly lit, even us would feel quite vulnerable in that situation. And I've walked many a times with keys in between my fingers, you know, getting ready to gouge someone's eye out if they jump me. So, you know, it is, and we're trained, we're used to dealing with people in violent situations. So for us to feel like that, you know, women may feel this way. And what West Mercia Police are doing is trying to engage with the women in the communities, and they've got various different programs that they're running, one being Safer Streets, where they're offering women to team up with police officers and have a walk, literally just walk around the streets and show them areas that they feel unsafe. If there's a subway, or if there's a particular unlit area on a walk that you do. And it's been really, really beneficial, actually, to the women in the community and to us as police women to be able to see how vulnerable people can feel.
Just on top of that, if you were out in the community and you saw a group of men and a woman looking uncomfortable, what would you do? Does anybody have any thoughts or feelings on what they'd feel comfortable doing? Yep. They've got a friendly face to help them. Yeah. Yeah, so that's perfect. That's one of the things that we advocate as police. But obviously some people might not feel that comfortable putting themselves in that situation. So if you do find that there is something where someone's having unwanted comments or even just staring at them, because that can make women feel uncomfortable with men staring at them. One of the things is in a gym. Perfect example. I've had it happen. It's why I don't like going to the gym. It makes me feel uncomfortable. It does. You know, as a woman outside of policing, you know, you don't have the uniform there as a protective barrier because this does offer a certain level of armoury. So, you know, you've had it where you're doing something, you're trying to get fit and you've got men staring at you. It does make you feel uncomfortable. It's not a criminal offence, but it does make women feel uncomfortable in certain situations. So again, it might not be something that you feel comfortable challenging, and we appreciate that because you might not want to put yourself at risk, but it's just making someone aware. So if you're in a public situation where you're at a shop, you're in a nightclub, you're in a gym, anywhere, you can just make sure you report it to somebody. Similarly, if you don't want to get yourself involved in something where a criminal activity is taking place, you can report it to the police anonymously. So it's just standing together and pulling together as a community to support people, particularly women, that might feel a little bit more vulnerable. So,
and please do call on us, especially myself and Savannah, as community officers. If you do feel that there's an area which you go that you feel you're quite vulnerable. I mean, I am targeting this mainly women because that's the whole point of it. It's violence against women and girls. But men equally can feel vulnerable in certain areas and under these situations. And what we're here to do is to try and stop those things happening and work with you. And I think we had such a really positive response with the Safer Streets, where, you know, lots of females were coming out with police officers, and it was a really good. It broke down a lot of barriers, and it you know, because at the end of the day, I've not come in uniform today, and I'm just a woman. I'm a mother. I used to be a wife, and that's just me, you know. But when I put the uniform on, we obviously, you know, we all change, and people see you in a different light. And I think just having a walk around with officers and having a bit of a chat, and it really does break those barriers down, and you feel comfortable then to say, actually, I get a bit nervous when I go around there because that man in the shop stares at me a bit weird, and you know, and we can have these conversations and be open about them.
Equally, the support is there for women that suffer domestic abuse as well. And we've got officers that are trained in domestic abuse, and we have regular courses around raising awareness to certain types of behaviour. So it's also supporting women that may feel uncomfortable in their homes as well, because that's the one place everyone should feel comfortable. So does anybody have, really quickly, any questions that they'd like to ask about violence against women? Yes?
The law in this country make it very hard for people to report or attend to some situations, because for example, last night I was driving and I saw a young lady, the way she's dressed, you know how they go out. She's so drunk and she fell on the floor. She can't even stand up, and I was driving past, so I had wanted to stop and help her, but I was scared.
I do appreciate that, yeah, so because it can put you in a it can put you in a difficult position as well, and we don't want that. In terms of what you're saying, that is something that police would potentially attend, or more likely to be ambulance, because that's more of a medical condition, because you don't know whether she's drunk, she could be suffering a medical episode, or so I would encourage you to report stuff. I appreciate you might not want to stop and help, because that can put you in a difficult position, but we would support and advocate you contacting emergency services, and you can ask the operator, do I need police or do I need ambulance? But that's something that they can guide you on anyway.
Okay. There is another one. I was going to pick her up. They called me. When I get there, I saw the man and the woman outside, and they were fighting. The man was trying to stop the woman from getting into the house, and the woman was only wearing blouse and her pant. And I cannot take her in my car because I was scared.
Yeah.
And I can't leave her there as well.
Yeah.
So I was about just to drive. I don't want trouble. And she ran into the car. She smashed the door with a big stone and ran into the car. So I drove a little bit off and called the 999.
Yeah.
And she gave the address and everything. Then within a few minutes, she opened the door and ran into the bush and said, oh, you're going to put me into trouble. Why do you call the police?
Yeah, and that is something that for domestic violence victims or domestic abuse victims, they don't understand the cycle of domestic abuse. Yeah. So they condone people's behaviour, so their perpetrator, they do condone it, they make excuses for that behaviour. So they can act, especially in situations like that, which are quite frightening for them. They might not be acting in a rational way, because their rational brain isn't working as well, because it's a high intense situation. So people can act very, very oddly, which we see on a daily basis. So yeah, it's a difficult one to put yourself in, and I do appreciate that, but you did the right thing by calling the police, so sorry you went through that.
My name is Martin. Yeah, just like Kwame said, I think one of the days on my way home from work, I also witnessed domestic abuse, where this guy was literally battering the girlfriend, and she was holding a baby. So I pulled over, and so we called the police. In fact, I personally called the police, which I wasn't sure whether I was doing the right thing, but now I know I did the right thing. I called the police and they took my details, everything. So I think a couple of days later, I was called, I was asked if I could give a statement. Yeah. And I said yes. So I gave them time and they asked me to come to the West Mercia police station. So after work, I drove down there. And what I didn't like was the fact that I sat there for almost 2 hours and I felt, in fact, I have never felt like a criminal. Sitting down there, just trying to give a statement to support an incident. For me, that was a bit disappointing. So going forward, I wasn't sure if I did the right thing because I work with time and I have to sit down there for that long just for a statement to be taken for an incident that I personally reported.
Yeah, and I do appreciate you offering your time for that. And I know it can be daunting when you've never been involved in with the police before, an investigation. When you provide a statement, unfortunately, it does take a little bit of time because we have to capture all of the evidence and make sure that what is written is accurate and detailed. To make things a little bit easier, you don't have to go to the police station next time. That isn't an expectation. We can do it in the comfort of your own home or somewhere else that you'd prefer. So somewhere more comfortable, which will make you feel less like a criminal, because being at the police station for 2 hours is quite a long time. So I do appreciate that. And I'm really sorry you've had that experience and felt that way, because you know, from my perspective, I would never want my officers to make someone feel that way. So it's just offering you that reassurance that you are doing the right thing. And that is something that I would expect officers to be providing you with, that reassurance. So you definitely did do the right thing, and thank you so much for supporting that, because that might be the evidence that we need to make sure that we secure a conviction on that suspect. Because a lot of the time, particularly with women in domestic abuse relationships, they don't find the strength until later on to provide that support so that they can criminalise their partners. It's quite a conflicting situation for a person to be in. So the fact that you've done that, it's commendable and it's very brave of you to do that, so thank you. But I'm really sorry you've had that experience. Anybody else?
Yeah,
Hello.
just a quick one. So I think a couple years back when I did my training, I was told that if I was ever in an uncomfortable situation, I could go up to like a random person in a venue and basically be like, oh, I'm waiting for Angela, could you call Angela? Yeah. And then that would alert them that I'm uncomfortable and something's happening to me, and they would alert the police. I just want an update. Is it still Angela or is it changed?
Yes, it's still Angela. So
okay,
it's on posters in toilets, particularly in nightclubs, because that's where people are probably at their most vulnerable when they're drunk, they've had drinks, and then they've got people making them feel uncomfortable. So yes, it is still Ask Angela. It is still promoted by the police for us to use that and utilise it, and we're still encouraging pubs, clubs and shops and stuff to engage in that. So yeah. Anything else? Yeah, of course you can.
Sometimes the women also provoke because they know they are being defended. The law is for them. So is there any way they are going to educate the women for stopping that? Because I picked somebody up last night and he said, oh, that lady there started a row in the pub. Yeah. There was a gentleman there. He didn't do nothing. He hasn't done anything. He just went, boom, punch his face. Then she came out, yeah, punch him. And they hold the man from attacking him. Supposing this man is attacking, the police will come straight for the man.
We are changing those views as well. So another thing is that, so with domestic abuse, it isn't just one-sided. 1 in 7 men do suffer domestic abuse as well. So we are recognising that women can be suspects and perpetrators in offences. So please rest assured that we don't just take a one-sided approach and think women are always the victims. We are very aware that women can be quite menacing and mean as well, and they do commit offences. So, you know, plenty of times I was a detective in the domestic abuse unit, so I have had females as suspects. That can be in child abuse and domestic abuse. So please rest assured we don't take a one-sided approach to policing, and we do criminalise women as well. And I think Nat just wanted to finish on something.
Yeah, just finally, just to say that as we said, myself and Savannah are the local neighbourhood officers. if the group of women that do come and attend the church, if ever you wanted myself and Savannah to come in and speak to you as a group about these kind of topics that are just something that you would want to discuss as women, then please do let the pastor know, because that's something we'd really be interested in talking to you about in a safe environment where you can open up and have talks with us as friends, really, as opposed to just police, and we can discuss all the different things that we offer in West Mercia. So please do bear that in mind and have a word with the pastor if that's something that you wanted to do. Okay. Is that, are we done? Yeah.
I would make a exception. I'll take this question from.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Is that okay?
My question is about the Angela terms. Is it for everybody or is for special people? Because like me, I've lived here almost 20 years, and last Thursday was the first time I heard it. This is the second time. I spoke to my daughter about it, and she said she don't know. Is it for everybody or is for special people that has been trained with that terms? Thank you.
So it is something
I think
that's...
you can share a bit more on the Angela, maybe. That will help. So we also know what exactly it is. Is that okay? What is this we don't know?
So it's tailored for women that feel uncomfortable in situations. So if you're on a date, for example, and the person that you're with is making you feel uncomfortable, it doesn't have to be anything to do with a criminal offence. It's just someone that's behaving oddly. You can go to someone in a restaurant, you can go to someone in a bar, you can go to someone in a shop, and you can ask for Angela. That will then prompt them to know that something is making you feel uncomfortable. So it's recognising that a woman is in an uncomfortable situation where they can then take action. So whether that's a staff member in a store or whether it's someone in hospitality working in a restaurant. It's just to offer that reassurance to women that they are there to support them and they'll give them help. It doesn't have to be anybody that's trained in it. We do promote it in shops, clubs, restaurants, pubs, so that they are aware that that scheme is available. So they will be more familiar with it, but it is said to members of the public as well. It's shared on social media, so it's gained traction on there, so it raises awareness that this is something that you can do. So it is something that we will promote to members of the public as well. So if you're in a situation where you feel uncomfortable, that is something that we will promote. So it's not just specialists that will do with that or anybody that's just had specialist training. It's for everybody in all public.
Alex, thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That was a really interesting discussion, and I think what we'd like to do is actually hold another meeting just with the ladies in the room to have a private discussion around some of the issues. Slightly, but I know there's food in the background and people are getting a bit restless. So what we're going to do, we're just going to finish off on the Stop and Search presentation, because I think that's one of the most interesting ones you've got questions about. And then what we'll do after that is we'll take questions and answers while we're having some food, rather than standing up here. And you can meet all the officers and ask the questions you need to do. So we'll finish off on Stop and Search. Hate crime we'll put to one side, and you can ask any questions you want while we're having some food. So I'll hand you over to Dan.
You can even ask questions on hate and crimes whilst we are having a
Absolutely.
refreshment, so don't worry, there's more time to have with that as well.
Do you want that one? Is that better?
Hello everyone, how are we? Good? Good. So, I'm obviously here to speak to you about Stop and Search. I appreciate it can maybe instill a few feelings inside of you. So just put your hands up. Who do you guys know about Stop and Search? Put your hands up if you know or are aware of Stop and Search, the police power of that. A few of you? Yeah? Cool. Okay. So if you just want to shout out a few words, what sort of words come into your minds or come into your heads if I was to mention Stop and Search and the police using Stop and Search? Feel free to shout out.
I'm likely to be stopped because of my skin color.
Okay, I appreciate those feelings. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to go through how we would just, sort of the process behind stopping and searching, and the legislation and a little bit of the grounds that I as a police officer would use whenever I do a stop and search. So the first thing, there's a lot of different powers that we can use to detain, stop and search people, but the main ones that you would probably be stopped for would be Section 1 of PACE or Section 23 of the Misuse of Drugs Act. And the aim of obviously stop and search, being the police, we're here to protect people from harm. That's our main thing. And stop and search is obviously a really useful tool to be able to proactively protect people from very violent offences such as knife crime, robberies, burglaries, things like that. So that's the main reason that the stop and search legislation is put in. So the first things first, we look at the grounds. So for every officer to conduct a legal stop and search, you need 2 grounds to be able to stop someone. So what that usually could be would be some intelligence, a little bit like the superintendent said earlier, and another action maybe. So I'll give you an example. So say you're at a train station, which is a transport hub, quite a busy area, and a police officer's on patrol there. And there's intelligence for a specific person with a very specific description that is been involved in robberies in that area previously, okay? And so I was to spot that person. So that's one ground there, because I've seen someone matching the exact description based on the intelligence around those robberies. You could also add on the fact that it's potentially a high crime area, it's a mass transit hub, that's another thing that we'd look at. But thirdly, it would be the fact, if I was to say approach this male, because initially you don't really have ground straight away, you've got to try and engage in a bit of an interaction. And then let's say this person turns away and tries to run off. So there, that would be, I'd say, 3 grounds that you'd have there to stop and search someone. And let's say we stop that person. So what I would do as a police officer is I would firstly explain to them that they're being detained for a purpose of a search, okay? So I'd go, I'm PC 21725 Arthur, and I'd say my base station. So I'm stationed at Mallinsgate Police Station on the Telford Central Neighbourhood team, okay? I would offer that person the opportunity to see my warrant card, which obviously I always have on me here, and I would just show that, okay? Just to prove that I'm a police officer, because a stop and search can happen not only if you're in uniform, but an officer that's on duty can also conduct them out of uniform, okay? Although there are specific legislation that means certain bits of the law will not mean that they've got to be in uniform to do that, okay? And then I'd explain the object of the search. So I'd say, due to the intelligence around knife point robberies, let's say, in the area, and going on this scenario that we've just been through, I'm detaining you to look for any offensive weapons, okay? So I've gone through the grounds, and then I explain the grounds, and I explain those 3 things that I've just mentioned to you, the fact that we're in a transit hub, you've ran away, you've been evasive, and someone matching your description has been involved in robberies, okay? I'd search them, and even whether I find something or not, they'd be entitled to a copy of the stop and search form. So what we've got is an app, and that app is where we put in all our use of force, and the full grounds for stop and search, okay? And I'd fill that out. And once I fill that out, it will give a reference number, which I can then give to yourself, and you can then go to a police station, and you can request a copy of that stop and search form, and also any related stuff. So I believe you can then do freedom of information request and request a body worn, because as the superintendent said, all our stop and searches now, to make us more accountable, has to be recorded on body worn. And I'd also, as well, because we do have a set mnemonic that we've got to go through, but I don't really use that order. I find it's a little bit awkward, a little bit clunky. But the other thing I'd explain would be the legal power that we're using to stop them and to search them. So in that case, it would be Section 1 of the Police and Criminal Evidence Act, okay? And the main thing with stop and search, like I said, it's a preventative tool that we use to proactively target violent offences and offences that have a big impact on you guys. So let's say, I know one of you mentioned drug dealing or drug areas in certain areas. We can then go to those areas, and we can then look at, so that'll be one ground, saying there's a lot of intelligence around drug dealing in this area, and we can then look at, so depending on how people act there, if people start running off and dispersing, we can then start looking at grounds and developing grounds to stop and search them for drugs. And then we can look at, again, a bit like you said earlier, not always to criminalise, but we can educate, we can seize, and we can look at restorative justice around certain offences like that. Does that kind of make sense? And does that clear up a few maybe misconceptions? Have you got any questions before we go and get some food? Have we got any questions about stop and search? Yeah. Ask you this.
I think somebody said about the color.
Yes.
Yeah. And all that you're talking about, I think you didn't mention about people driving, because I've seen quite a lot of drivers being stopped and being searched by the police. And now what is going on is, I don't know if the police has noticed, the world is changing. The generation is changing. Before people dress nicely, but now you see the young guys with some funny hair, funny beard, with some different dresses. As soon as the police sees them driving BMW with noise, they pull them over. That's a concern.
Hopefully, we're trying to come away from that stigma that's attached to specific cars, the way people dress. We appreciate that, people dress in a certain way, it's trends. So we do appreciate that. We're trying to come away from that sort of policing, which is why every police force, we have to justify why we're doing that stop search. We can't just do it because we think that someone may be involved in a crime or a criminal activity. We have to make sure that there are grounds for searching. So if Dan stop searched yourself next to Co-op, he gave you all of the grounds, he'd give you a form that would say this is how you can get the information, it would then come to me. So I need to supervise it and audit it to make sure that I'm satisfied as a supervisor that Dan had the sufficient grounds to search that. If he doesn't, then that's obviously a development issue or even a misconduct matter. So rest assured that it's not just Dan that reviews it and decides the grounds, it goes to a supervisor, and then like has already been mentioned, there's a panel where random stop searches come up. They're just generated at random, where they will review them and they'll determine whether the grounds were sufficient or not. So it's not just a single process involving a police officer, it goes through multiple channels as well. So it's all recorded, all audited. So if you do have any issues with any stop searches, they can be reviewed and they will be reviewed by a supervisor as well.
I'll just quickly add as well. As police officers, one of the main things that we're trained on and one of the main things we're recruited on is acting with impartiality and fairness and transparency, okay? So when it comes to stop and search, we're all trained to be, what's the word? We shouldn't profile on what people are wearing at all. And I can't speak for every officer, because admittedly, a bit like we're acknowledging that there has been problems in the past of people that aren't acting fairly and aren't acting like that. But as a police, and I can say myself that I would never use any sort of, any factor such as how people are dressing, how people look. I'd never use that as a factor for my stop and searches. It's always got to be, a bit like I've said, it's got to be solid grounds. A bit like the superintendent said, 100% is pretty much what we need to be able to go there and to be able to search. Does that make sense? Cool. Any other questions?
I was just going to ask, even with all of the grounds that you guys have, there is still an issue with the disproportionate amount that you guys are profiling, black people. So I think one of your, Pete said something about it coming down from 12, was it 18 to 6? Yeah. So you guys definitely saw when you were supervising that there was issues as to why it was so often, and you did things to make it come down. So how are you guys regularly reviewing, except for just reviewing the stop and searches, that the amount of times that you guys are stop and searching black people is not based on some of the officers not actually being impartial? Like, do you have regular reviews with the police officers? Do you have regular sessions with making sure that they're anti-racist? Because it's still a lot, and we're a very small population, so 6 times more likely is quite crazy, to be quite honest.
Yeah, we do appreciate that. There are panels that are working with people from the community that can review the way that we do stop searches to try and improve that. So work is ongoing. We appreciate it. It's not where we want it to be, and we've acknowledged that. However, we do try and work with the communities, especially IAG groups as well, where we encourage them to give feedback and offer ways we can improve on our stop search and how we perform and how we explain certain things. It's very difficult, and we are still trying to tackle it.
Right, it's me again. Yeah, for over 20 years that I've lived in Telford, it's only recently that I got pulled over by an officer. And for me, I didn't have an issue with that because I've got nothing to hide. But the only problem I had was the cocky style of the officer. I mean, he was ready for it. And I was like, wait a minute, I've just finished work, I'm going home. What did you stop me for?
Yeah.
And, okay, let me land, please. So he was going on and on and on. And at some point, I realized he was up for it. So I said, okay, what did you stop me for? He said, I just want to see if you got some weapons in your car and all that. I was like, okay. But it's just his demeanor. I mean, his style. It's like he has already passed his judgment. You don't know me from Adam. I mean, you've pulled me over. You're an officer. I respect you for that. But I think sometimes it is the approach. Because assuming I were to be an aggressive person, then there would have been, that kind of physical confrontation because he was up for it. And there was no need for that. So I think this is where probably much of your training needs to go into. I'm not saying all of you are like that. I mean, I've met some fantastic officers, when I was working at Telford College and all that. But I think there are still few elements, and I'm glad you rightly touch on that I think you need to have a word with. The way, once you don't look like them, the approach is different.
Yeah. No,
And I don't think it's nice.
Yeah, and I do appreciate that. And again, I'm sorry you've had that experience. It isn't something that I would promote amongst my team. If I felt that my team were, with anybody, being unfair or being rude to people, it's not what I expect. At the same time, with any profession or any walk of life, you do get some people that don't have that way with words, and that they can sometimes, they have a different approach to what I expect. Any profession get that. So it just depends. But yeah, we are trying to tackle that to try and break down that barrier. And yes, of course you can.
Yeah, so really horrific experience there, and it's not uncommon. So what we're trying to do to educate our officers around stop and search is we've started a training program, but built into that is something called procedural justice. So procedural justice is whereby we're encouraging our officers to carry out any encounter with a member of the public with courtesy and respect, first of all, because when I've been going around doing training to a lot of my colleagues around the different policing areas, they always ask me, well, how do we engage with our black communities? And that's a really interesting question because and I applaud the officers for asking those questions. How do we engage with our black communities? And I always say to them that black communities are not aliens; they are just people that want to be treated with respect and dignity. That's all it is. And if you can start with that starting point of treating every stop and search encounter that you do with respect and dignity, and then build onto that, explaining to people why you are carrying out that power, then you won't go far wrong. Because people just need to know why they're being stopped and searched. And if you explain it with respect and dignity, then I think we will have much better community engagement, as well as increasing our trust and confidence. So we are on this journey. We are getting better, and hopefully the training that we are carrying out now will improve things moving forward.
Thank you, sir.
Alex, Dan, thanks very much, and thank you, sir, for going in there. Telford Police do have a scrutiny panel, stop and search scrutiny panel, which we are looking for applicants to join. So if you'd like to scrutinise the way we do our stop and search and watch the videos and test us, please find me afterwards. I'll get you details, and I'm more than happy to put you in contact. So we're just going to conclude now, and I'm going to play a very short video. This is around hate crime. We don't have time to go into it, but I said there'll be opportunity to ask questions afterwards. So one short video to go.
The defining characteristic of a hate crime is not actually hate, it's prejudice. We use the word hate to define it because the prejudice is born of a hateful climate. But a climate is a collective mood. It's not an individual selective move. And in the face of political ineptitude, we only have one option. Let's improve. Hate is such a strong word for such a weak emotion. A wound can't heal if hatred keeps it open. And not all wounds can be physically revealed, but they do all deserve the ability to heal. So let's stand for the belief in living free. Let me find the courage within me, giving meaning to the first 7 letters of the word responsibility with an E. What's your response? For the future generations, we've got to start providing some guidance, because this will be a time that defines us. Because you can't fight violence with silence.
Right. That's incredibly powerful words. And I do very much admire George and his poetry. The key message there is you must report hate crime. If you've been a victim of racist abuse, you must report. We take it extremely seriously. And I'd have loved to carry on with a presentation about the stats and the data and how we prosecute people, but we do weekly, daily do this. It is incredibly important you stand up for the community, you share information, and we know where this is happening. It is, unfortunately, a continued problem to society, which we take, like I say, very seriously. We do have hate crime officers as well in force who can support you and train and guide you for the process, but don't just sit there in silence. That is the end of today's presentation. I hope you very much enjoyed the working with the police. We'll be taking questions at the back. We're having some food. All the officers who have been standing up today will be around, so you can ask questions, share information, pass your details. If you'd like to get involved in our work, then please pass on your contact details and we'll make contact. So thank you very much for coming and enjoy your food.